Hey CSU, welcome to another video. This week we're starting our series on the Spirit, and we have one of the guests I'm the most excited for, Grace Ji-Sun Kim, coming to us from the States, live and in living color. Welcome, Grace.
Well, thank you so much, Liam, for inviting me. It's a pleasure to be here with you.
For those who
and thank you for putting my book in the background. Thank you.
Yeah, there it is. Prime place.
Yes.
Well, speaking of your book, so Grace is the
later.
yeah, exactly. Go on by now.
Yeah.
For those who don't know, Grace is the associate professor of theology at Earlham School of Religion and the author and editor of over 10 books, including Making Peace with the Earth, Action and Advocacy for Climate Justice, The Holy Spirit, Chi, and the Other, Theological Reflections on Gangnam Style, which I'm very intrigued about. And this book here, which we're discussing today, Embracing the Other, the Transformative Spirit of Love.
Thank you for introducing all the books. Well, most of the books. Thank you so much, and thank you for your interest.
That's all right. So just before we get into it any further, we have like a nice little icebreaker question that we like to ask people that since we're a university group, if you were to go back to study tomorrow, something completely new and different, what would you like to do for the first time?
No, I've always had in the back of my mind, if I wouldn't mind being a medical doctor. I don't know. So I was thinking maybe go into medical school or something like that.
Yeah.
So I have 3 kids, and I'm hoping that at least one of them will fulfill one of my dreams that maybe I missed out on. So we'll see. Anyway, they all have their different interests, but perhaps that might have been something that I would have done.
Nice.
If I had another life to live.
Yeah, that's excellent. So, all right. Well, throughout this semester, as I've mentioned to you, we've been exploring how to speak of God and Jesus and now the Spirit in a way which is responsible to the world in which we find ourselves. This week, we're focusing on the Spirit, and I thought maybe that's where we should start because, we've done the Spirit third, and, a lot of times we don't even focus on the Spirit. A lot of times Christians want to go with Jesus because that's what makes us unique. That's how we stand out. So why have you found it helpful to focus on the Spirit, particularly in ideas of embracing the other?
Yeah, well, thank you so much for that question. I think it's a very, very important question for our time today because we live in a global world. When I first started writing, my first book is called The Grace of Sophia. And if you've not read it, I hope some of your students will read it. It's a book on wisdom Christology, kind of a feminist approach to who Jesus is. And when I was doing my PhD studies, that was very important to me, who Jesus is. And I thought, this is what I'm going to devote my whole life to, redeveloping a Christology that will be liberative to women particularly. And as I was, after that book and I was studying what should I do next, I started to move away from Jesus and more into the Spirit for several reasons. Because it's a globalized world, I think we need to be able to learn to live with one another. People are migrating. We have refugees, climate refugees. We have folks who are moving for economic reasons, family reasons, political reasons. So we have to be able to learn to love and live with these people, with different people who are so different from us culturally, religiously, spiritually. And so when I have traveled the world, I've spoken in various places, Africa and South America and Asia. I've never been to Australia, so hopefully one day I can make it to Australia. Yeah, I hope so. So when I meet people around the world, it's amazing to me how people can click so easily when I talk about the Spirit, no matter what religion, what culture, what language people are speaking in or familiar with. This understanding of the Spirit is global. People around the world understand the Spirit. and people are not so understanding of who Jesus is. So I think as Christians, we're so Christocentric throughout much of our history. Our Christian doctrines have been centered on Christology. Our whole Christianity has been centered on Christology. But I think now, if we are to be able to live with one another, understand each other, we have to talk a more familiar language. And the language is spirit. Spirit is understood in all these different cultures and religions. They may have different terms for spirit. And that's one of the reasons why I kind of decided to drop the word holy in front of spirit. One of the books that you mentioned is Holy Spirit, She and the Other. For that book, I fought with my publisher about dropping the word holy, but they wouldn't drop it. So in that book, it is called Holy Spirit. One of the reasons why I moved away from using the word holy in front of spirit is because once as Christians we put the word holy in front of something, it feels like we own it. We own the spirit. We don't own the spirit. The spirit moves freely, and the biblical passage when Yahweh says, I will be who I will be, I am who I am. We as Christians can't hold on to the spirit as if it belongs to us and only within the church. The spirit moves, the spirit breathes, the spirit creates, and the spirit is beyond our Christian religion. It's beyond this world. It is beyond our planet. So I think just for me, moving away from not using the word holy and moving towards spirit, it helps us really communicate, understand, and get a little closer to who God is. God is this immense, infinite being, and we try to make God finite, just like us. And it becomes easier to make God finite by focusing on who Jesus is. But once we kind of move more towards to understand the spirit, we recognize the infinity, the immenseness of God, and understand God is something whom we can't put in a box and present to the world or present to our church saying this is who God is. So that's kind of why I want to move to a more global understanding of the spirit. One of the books you didn't mention is Global Christian Doctrines for Global Gender Justice. It's an edited book with Jenny Daggers, who teaches in England. And one of we're going through the different doctrines. So we go through God, through Jesus, the Trinity, creation, etc. And one of the chapters is on the Spirit, written by Dr. Linda Thomas, who teaches at Lutheran Theological Seminary in Chicago. She's an African-American woman. And part of her work on the Spirit says, being African-American, she says, the Spirit had always existed in Africa, even before the white missionaries ever got there. So I think when people recognize that this spirit is beyond our kind of comprehension or beyond what we can hold on to, then I think we can really begin to have interfaith dialogue, be welcoming of strangers and those who are so different from us.
Yeah, that'll preach.
Thank you.
I think that also has a lot of implications for us here in Australia. We're living, like the Aboriginal people have lived the oldest civilization on Earth, and we sometimes have this idea that spirit came to this land when Christians showed up, and it's like no, several thousands, tens of thousands of years before. Yeah.
Actually, the Aboriginals I do mention in my Holy Spirit, She and the Other book. It's a more technical book, so I go into more detail with different cultural understandings of the spirit, and I did talk about the Aboriginals who had understood this concept of the spirit way before any white folks went to Australia. So I think we have a lot to learn, a lot to grow, and not be afraid of those who are so different from us, or those who are not the white normative folks in our society. So I'm glad you mentioned that, because I think the Aboriginals and Native Americans here in the United States and in Canada and people around the world, the Indigenous folks, have a lot to teach us about the spirit. And in Embracing the Other, I go into a little detail about the Asian concept of spirit, which I use Qi. So, this understanding of spirit has been around for thousands of years, even before Christians ever, came into being. So, and different cultures and different people use different words. So when we study the Old Testament, the Spirit, we use the word ruha. In the New Testament, we use pneuma. When theology was so popular in Germany, they used the word Geist. So I think now we're in a global world, so I can use my Asian term too.
Yeah.
So I often use chi spirit to give the understanding that the spirit is not owned by anyone. The spirit has lived and moved and is life-giving and has moved around the globe. So thank you for that question.
Oh, that's all right. So in Embracing the Other, you begin the book with explorations of the experiences of foreign women, both within the Old Testament and through the experiences of Asian American women, which includes part of your own story. Why was it important to begin or ground your theology in these stories of othering, these stories of sexism and racism in cultures?
Yeah, I think it's much of theology it grows from our own personal stories and experiences. That's what feminist theology has been arguing for the last 50 years or so, that the understanding of who God is, because in our experiences, we come to understand God in our own lives. And in my life, growing up as an immigrant in Canada, I moved to the States 12 years ago, but I grew up in Canada. We immigrated in 1975, and the experiences of racism within the society, and then the experiences of sexism within the church, those two kind of informed and it certainly affected who I am and how I became who I am. So these are very important experiences, and they inform my theology, because in those experiences of pain, of racism and sexism, I do encounter God and the Spirit, who is loving and who is beyond our comprehension. So that's why I begin with that story, and then I begin with my own experiences of pain, and then I go into the story of the foreign woman. Here in the United States, I don't know how Asians are treated in Australia, but for some reason here in the United States, Asian immigration has been going on from the 1800s. Generations of Chinese, generations of Japanese Americans, but for some reason we are always treated as foreigner. Not so much with the African Americans here, but for Asian Americans, we're always treated as foreigners. So we would often be asked the question, where are you from? When are you going back home? In one of the books I wrote, Here I Am, I wrote the story of my personal experience of being in a hospital. I was hospitalized, went into emergency room 2 years ago, and every person that came to see me, doctor, social worker, psychologist, specialist, all looked at me and asked me the question, do you speak English? And, I've been here for so long, and for them to ask me that question, that's the first thing that came out of their mouth, really signifies that they view me as foreigner. I'm not really an American here. I'm just a foreigner visiting or just kind of making my way through. So the idea of the foreign woman in the Bible, in the passages of Ezra, when we see them, they were married to, the Jewish men, and when they had come back, they were viewed as foreigners, and they were told to leave. So they were kind of pushed out of the community. And in the same way here, Asian Americans, we are othered. We are viewed as a foreigner. So every time there's a problem, then they can easily say, Asian Americans here, they're causing so much trouble or so much problem. They're never viewed as Americans, while as Europeans who immigrated maybe even last year are suddenly thought of as Americans all of a sudden. So white immigrants are viewed as Americans. Doesn't matter if they were only here 6 months or 60 years, they're viewed as Americans, while as Asian Americans are not viewed as Americans. So this understanding of the foreigners, particularly the women, is a painful story, and it's part of the Asian American immigrant story, or the Asian American history within here in the United States. So I begin with that to kind of give the backdrop of how we make one the other and what are we supposed to do with it. Is it something that should continue or something that we should stop?
Yeah.
So
So
yeah, that's how I begin the book.
that's terrific. And there's a lot for us there because I think the history is a lot similar here in Australia. There's been like, a lot of restrictions on immigration from Asian countries. So, there's been always rhetoric of like, the Asian invasion, coming through and stuff like this. So, and there is that continued like, so where are you from? Like Sydney. No, but where are you actually from?
Yeah, where are you really from?
Yeah. So that's really good. That'll be
and they tend to ask that just to the Asian Americans. So we will continuously be viewed as a foreigner. And when the United States was in war with Japan and Germany, and during the war, U.S. in war with Japanese, the Germans and the Italians, but only the Japanese were interned. They were the ones taken out of their homes and put in these internment camps because it doesn't matter. Germans could have just come a year ago, or the Italians. They will not be viewed as foreigner. But the Japanese who have been here for many generations, they lost everything during the war. They were rounded up and put in these camps, which is a horrific part of our history. So I think this concept of foreigner, being foreign, needs to be eliminated from our understanding, especially when we're doing theological reflection.
Definitely. And as you said, like we come to that, what should we do with the other? And the book is titled Embracing the Other. And you talk about 4 steps towards really loving our enemies or embracing the other. This is in a talk you did at Yale. And you said one was get over the doubt that Jesus really meant it, which I thought was a great, because sure, Jesus said it, but how seriously was he? I mean, he didn't know what my circumstance was. 2 was overcome the fear of the unknown. 3 was it takes energy, time, and commitment. And 4 was it requires us to open ourselves to the Spirit, which are a great outline. And I was wondering if you could maybe expand on this a little, and particularly maybe what it means for the 4th part, open ourselves to the Spirit. And perhaps if you have any examples or stories to help us just kind of, see this out in front of us.
Yeah. As we began this talk, we have been so Christocentric. So we always talk about Jesus within us. So, Jesus is the one that changes us, and Jesus, coming to our lives and make us different. So we've been very Christocentric, and and my attempt with the Grace of Sophia is to bring a feminine face to Christology. So this wisdom understanding of who Jesus is. So there are many problems with focusing on Jesus, but this understanding the Spirit is alive, is the one that gives us birth, and the Spirit lives in us. We in the scriptures we talk about Ruha, the breath of God. The breath that gives life to the dry bones. Jesus, said, I will send you a comforter. During the Pentecost, this gush of wind. It's the Spirit. And I think because we've been so Christocentric, we kind of have failed to understand the Spirit that lives within us. And I think Euro theology has made it so philosophical. So in the sense that it was a spirit out there, it's not really part of us, it's not within us. So I think today we've inherited that kind of understanding of the Spirit. And I don't know what denomination you are, but I'm Presbyterians, and we Presbyterians don't really talk about the Spirit. More different denominations will have more emphasis on the Spirit, but it's not something that Presbyterians are known for, to talk about the Spirit. Because actually many of us get afraid of the Spirit because we feel that the Spirit may make us do something out of the ordinary.
Right.
So we from talking about the Spirit. But the Spirit lives within us. And so my attempt with using qi, so if you study this Chinese word qi, Koreans have the same word. In Japanese, we may say it a little differently or spell it with a K-I. It's this understanding of the Spirit that kind of lives in us. So this embodied Spirit, and it gives us life. It is life-giving. And so that last step where we are open to the Spirit, once we kind of allow the Spirit to be within us and make us different people, to help us to love, You know, sometimes loving is one of the hardest things, you know. So especially those who have harmed you or have called you the other or the foreigner or laughed at you, or, you know, the theological reflection on Gangnam Style, I co-wrote it with Dr. Joe Che, and we're kind of breaking down laughter. Why do we laugh at people? And that's one thing that white America has done against Asian Americans. They continue to laugh at our expense. We become the butt of the joke. If you've ever watched the Oscars this past year, Chris Rock brought up 3 Asian American kids on stage and he made fun of them. We Asian Americans become the and people feel like that's not racism, or it's still okay, but that's not okay. So we have to laugh at each other. We can't be afraid of those who look so different from us. And I think, you know, at the end, ultimately, I think it's the Spirit that can really move us and change us to do this, because it's just, as human beings, it's so hard. We want to laugh at people. We want to make fun of them. We want to make them the other, or they're the foreigner, so we can just blame them if any problem occurs. It's so easy, and it's kind of our humanity that allows us, or kind of says it's okay to do that. So I really think we have to kind of give up and allow the Spirit to move within us, to really kind of start loving those who are so different, or those who have hurt us so much.
Yeah, that is absolutely fantastic. We'll have to finish it up there, Grace, but I definitely recommend people check out the book. I wrote a thing where I said it's one of the 6 books I'd use from this millennium to introduce people to Christianity. I think it's really excellent. And yeah.
I am so honored to be on that list. Thank you so much for putting me on that list.
Oh, you're welcome.
So honored to be on your list. And I hope your students will enjoy the book and just it. I would love for them to review it on Amazon or review it somewhere. So thank you so much for this time and opportunity. Great to talk to you today.
Yes, thank you so much. So yeah, check out the book. Check out Grace has a website. If you just search her name, it'll come up. It's a WordPress site, and it's got like all the information for her book. And yeah, exactly. Buy them, give them a good review. Let's get the word out there. So we'll see everyone in groups during the week, Monday and Thursday at the U Bar, Wednesday online. Grace, thank you so much once again.
Okay, thanks, Liam.